Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 89 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we're going to create the setups to process slag and make concrete. Enjoy. 15 crushers, which might be easier to just do 16 of them. So one red belt comes in, and then 2 red belts come out. So we can kind of do it side by side like this. And how many inserters? Looks like a yellow going in and a red going out. So the input can be from the middle. And the output can be on the near side. So that's 4, 8, 12, 16. Let's get the lights in there. That should be it. It's pretty straightforward. That can slice in really anywhere. Much more complicated is this concrete setup. So we need 40 of these, making 30 bricks. But let's do 2 sets of 20. Imagine they operate pretty slowly. Correct. Gotta make this a repeatable pattern. So that's 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. Then the same thing again to get 40. Then we need some lights in here. That's looking good. Let's make it go the other way. So somehow, bricks are going to have to get in here, but we're going to produce that with crushed stone, so we don't have to worry too much about that right now. Let's go to the next step, which combines cement and slag. We need 16 machines. Let's see, we can kind of do this. Have those in between. We have undergrounds for the water. Then we're going to need 24 silicon ore and 12 slag. So let's say silicon ore, slag, or vice versa, doesn't really matter. Fortunately, these machines aren't going to line up quite right. That's just a nature for how it's going to work, because they need to be spaced more apart. And yellow inserters will work. So some of these are going to be long-handed, and some are going to be long-handed drop, but short-handed pickup. So that seems pretty good. Can we copy it to the other side? Looks like we can. So that's 8 machines, but we need 16 of them. So we need to copy them one more time. Just have to see how that works. It is a little dark. It's a little better. So, let's see. We gotta get this piped in, even though it's offset a little bit. Then we need to get the water hooked up with itself. Okay. And these are just inputs, so they don't need to be connected to this side. Now to make that cement requires 96 powder mixers. Luckily they're kind of small. Unfortunately we're not manufacturing them here. We're doing the powderizers, not the mixers. Oh well, I'll just handcraft them. Probably should space this out a little bit, because we need a little bit of room for our belt with the bricks to come in. I was thinking they might come in through the top, but it might look a little more symmetrical if it comes in through the middle here. It would look something like that. It could be easily switched to come in through the other side if that's what we need. But I think we would need it to be red. That just gives us an idea for space. So let's give it one gap. Because, on the same token, the slag is going to be coming from somewhere else. Something like that. So we need a whole bunch of ore powderizers. So let's just figure out a nice little pattern, and then we can kind of line it up with the rest of this here. We can fit 3 of them between a pole. Let's put 8 in a line, because that divides into 96. So let's make cement. It's probably just, yeah, yellow inserters for this. It's a slow machine. We have 2 belts. 1 in and 1 out. Let's copy this to the other side. Let's fix the inserters. Looking pretty good. So that's 16 of them. So let's see how many of these we're going to have to stick next to each other. That's a little wider than the rest of the setup. So let's cut that part out. And put one more set on this side. And that should be our 96. I just noticed the spacing is a little weird here. Well, that's no good. And we need one more row. But the power poles don't quite reach, so gotta place some extras in here. We probably need a ton of lights. Right there, right there, right there, and right there. Okay, we need to combine the outputs. Let's try to get them centered as much as possible. Looks like that's the center right there. Actually, that lines up quite nicely. Okay. Unfortunately, gonna have to pick up this entire thing just to move it a few squares, but that's how it goes. Want it as perfect as possible, because why not? Okay. Cement looks good. It's not as big as I thought it would be. It's really basically the same size as the rest of that stuff, it's just the machines are so much smaller. You can fit more in the same space. So we need to get silicon and limestone in here. We need them in fairly large quantities. Which means we're probably going to want to have 2 belts coming in. 2 red belts. That would come in like here. Do something like that. Go down and then keep splitting on each thing. Or at least on this one it would go like that. And then the second one would go in and split up like that. And then they would need to be set up ahead of time to have half the belt have lime and the other half have silicon. And in fact, we might set that up with the next step here. It just depends on how big it is. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be fairly large. It's going to be something like this, where the input will come in through there, where the lime will come in through there. Silicon's coming from somewhere else. And it comes in through here. To match with each location. Something like that. And we'll have to get the alignment set up properly, but that's kind of an idea of space. So we have 16 blast furnaces, but we need 18 washing plants, and that's a really close ratio. How about we just do 18 washing plants and 18 blast furnaces so they can feed into each other. Okay, we have a blast furnace making lime. Then we want to try to do direct insertion from limestone, which we can do. And then because there is going to be a pipe in here, we need to put a gap. Then we have our output, which can go wherever. So we have our direct insertion. But we also need to get fuel in here. So we'll do something like this, and then long-handed for the output. So fuel is there, output is there. But I guess there's a gap here, so actually that'll work just fine. Let's copy it around to the other side. Doesn't quite let us reverse it evenly. There we go. Now we need 16 of these. They're pretty wide, so it might work to just do them all in a line. Yeah, then we can just place a bunch of them down. That said, now that we know where it's going, we can try to make it fit nicely with this up here. Because we need to belt in the line that we're creating. Okay, pretty close. And if it comes from the other side, we can just reverse this. Seems like this will work pretty well. This ought to be red. But for the fuel belt, it doesn't matter. Okay, how many of these can we plop in here? One more set. Let's pull off the ends. I'm not sure where the best place for piping in the carbon dioxide is, but we'll figure that out later. The fuel's going to need to go in there from somewhere. Let's just say from over there. And we'll figure out how to match up that water later when we pipe it in. Exactly how much water are we talking about? Okay, 1 pump's worth. Not too bad. Now we need 2 plants into 2 plants into 2 plants, and then the pump. Okay, well, since they're split half and half, we can put 2 machines on one side and then 2 machines on the other. Probably want to leave some room for this potential underground. Let's put a space there. So we need 3, 2, 1. So there's the 3. I have this lined up as best I can, so I can share the water with everything else. Now then, how are we going to do this? Well, we can do 2, and we can save some space by squishing them together. But if they're going to happen on both sides, this might not be enough room. But what about if we put another one there? Let's say that's 1. Looks like we're going to need 1 more space in there. We'll just remember that. We're going to have to space this down by 1. And then viscous mud water comes in through there. There'll be a belt right here for the mud. What if we do that same thing, but on the other side and lined up at the right spot? So it looks like it needs to be lined up right here. We can kind of space it like that. How will that work? So the mud will go through there. It doesn't quite reach. Pretty close. Oh, but we needed to move this whole thing down by 1. So we copy all of it. Move it all down by 1. We need to put another pipe in there so it'll reach. That seems pretty good. Now the only thing that's left is the seafloor stuff, but that's easy enough to pipe in. We just need 1 machine. Then we need all this water hooked up to the same process. So let's get water in there. So you have left side water and right side water. And now they're connected at 1 central point. Okay. We need an inserter to get rid of the mud. And lots of power poles. Let's see, do we have any lights in here? I don't think so. We didn't have any lights in... Or yeah, we have lights there. So we just need to place lights in here now. But right there. Right there. Right there. Right there. But right there. And some lights on each side there. That should be pretty good. I think that's the whole line. Just the various byproducts, which we'll need to hook up to whatever's relevant. Where we have the byproduct of mud. And we'll also need to have an input of regular water and mud water. Then it comes up here. We need to have an input of fuel. And it will create an output of carbon dioxide. It will produce our limestone. And then cook it in a lime. Which it goes up. It gets split across here. And put on one half of a belt, and then the other half of the belt, we need to grab silicon. And then all these powder mixers will create cement. The cement will come in. and then get pulled into these assembly machines. But also they'll need slag from the outside, which comes in through there. And then the liquid cement goes up into the concrete bricks machine, which requires stone bricks, which will also come from somewhere else. And then finally, it will create our output of bricks. So that is one long set of machines. I suppose I could have made it wider, but each individual group of machines would have been really weird if I made them super wide. So I made them all squares, and it's just stacking a bunch of squares on top of each other. Makes for a very long production chain. I mean, we're almost to the ocean here. So how big is that? Is that going to fit? I mean, so here's the thing about building various setups and blueprints to move and place around your factory. This is Tetris. You can make them any shape you want. And then when it comes down to figuring out where stuff goes, just place it where it goes. So you might say, well, that's kind of a weird machine. But what about right here? That's basically, I mean, that's more than enough space. And it's kind of this is a very narrow space, which not a lot can go into. But that would sure fit. And it's nearby to where a lot of stuff it would need. And it's far enough out of the way, which will allow some degree of expansion with our ore processing without getting in the way. So it seems quite alright, despite it being a very odd shape. Finally, we need to dump all of the extra slag into making slurry. And the process won't be too dissimilar from this, just larger in scale because we have more of these as byproducts. And honestly, most of the time this setup will probably not be operating at full capacity. Because this is worst case scenario stuff. It's pretty straightforward. You just take the slag, put it into a liquefier, and then into a filtration unit. And of course you have the coal filters and whatnot, and we have to process the extra resources that come out of it. But it should be pretty straightforward to build, at least compared to this. And that's kind of crazy having all of that just for concrete, but it's more efficient, and we're going to need a bunch of those blocks, so we have to do this. Alright, now that we have concrete ready, it's time for the last step in slag processing. And that is our dump, which is turning slag into slag slurry, and then filtering that into mineral sludge. And then we have some supporting processes that go attached to this. I don't think we can do anything too square with this because the liquefiers are much smaller than the filtration units, and we need a lot of filtration units. So we'll just have to see what we can do here. So we need 20 liquefiers, taking in 75 slag. So we need 3 belts with fast inserters. Might be easier just to do them in 4 belts. We're going to need to have long-handed inserters underground between them, 2 belts on here, 1 red inserter. Actually, this can work out pretty well because these inserters will grab from this far belt. And then if we copy this and put it to the other side, these will grab from this far belt. And that'll work out. Okay, so that's 2 belts worth. We need to copy it again to get 4 belts worth. And then we need to copy this a couple times. So we need a total of 20 of these. Let's see, get rid of the extra bits. And we'll connect everything in a little bit. So the next step is 40 filtration units. And they need to handle coal filters. I wonder if there's anything about this design we can reuse. Well, let's just grab a whole bunch of it. Then plop it down and figure out the pattern. Well, we don't need this. We can switch this over. To slag slurry. We'll worry about getting lights in there in a bit. So how many machines do we need in total? We need 40. Well, we should be able to pick this up. Flip it around to the other side. Flop it down. Then we'll be able to configure all of these inserters to be inserting on the correct sides here. Let's see. Let's have the up belt here being the new filters. So those are taking in properly. However, those need to be flipped around. That probably means these need to be flipped around as well. But we need to change their pickup and drop. There, there. Excellent. So that's 10 of them. That'll make 20. We don't have quite enough items to build this, but that should be okay. Select the whole thing again. And plop it here. The pipes aren't going to match up, but if we offset this, we can make them match up. We could probably change the way the pipes are done to squeeze it in even one more square. But that's probably unnecessary optimization. This is pretty good. Okay, that's all done. But despite me just saying it's unnecessary optimization, I'm like, but I can make it better. It'll squeeze in one space closer. This one's already covered, but we've got to get this side taken care of now. So it would be like that and like that. Then we can get rid of all the extra pipes. There we go, that should be able to squish one space closer. Take care of that in a little bit. Let's finish the design here. There's a couple of pipe ends sticking out here that don't need to be. But also we've got to connect these two to these two copies. And now we need to put some lights in here. And there isn't a single open space for any lights. We'll have to go with that. Oh, we don't have any lights here either. Alright, now we need the supporting processes on here. We need to handle the filters. Let's have a buffer chest. So red inserters for all. Or the input. And the input. Output. Output. And coal filters. And let's copy this to the other side. Although I do kind of want it to be lined up. Just for symmetry. Okay, we need to clean the sulfuric wastewater. Let's pick a side. How about the right? Would be nice to kind of line this up a little bit if possible. This does artificially space them out a bit, but at least it lines the pipes up. Then we have saline water right here. We need to hook up all four sides. this is the wrong thing though. We need it to be sulfuric wastewater. There we go. Then we have this sulfur, which is going to have to go somewhere. We also need 3 hydro plants of regular water. But I need to remember to take care of this mineralized water, so let's just put a little thing sticking out there. We could probably get by with putting the 2 hydro plants down here on the bottom. It may not line up very well with those pipes, so perhaps just make this setup a little wide. Put the plants on this side. Although we don't want these pipes connected all the time, because these just need to top off the system when the water gets a little low. So let's do some top-up valves, and awesome, more research done. What's the factory look like? It's doing pretty good, but bobmodium is really low. Probably need to let that catch up. Ah, yeah. Now we're just down to basically infinite mining, and it's going quite slow. It's got plenty of acids, that's not the problem. Yeah, these infinite miners are going at 0.5 per second now. Okay. Well, let's do some prospecting. Unfortunately, although prospecting will give us access to more resources, it will also slow down the rate to which we can mine it. So it's a double-edged sword. But we'll prospect that. Okay, overflows. 1, 2, 3. And let's have a buffer tank in there to smooth out the flow of liquids. And we'll worry about piping in the fresh water. Actually, depending on its position, weren't we getting rid of some fresh water around here? Let's see, we were dumping purified water right here. We might be able to hook those 2 systems up together and stop wasting it through the clarifier, which would always be nice. Because this is certainly going to consume lots of water, so we'll have to consider that. Okay, water's taken care of. Coal filters are taken care of. I think it's pretty good. Now we just kind of need to get this all attached. So the output, let's put on the bottom side here. I'm not sure where coal's going to come in. It's probably going to be something like that. Well, this one isn't hooked up at all. There's the bobmodium warning finally. Guess it really wasn't that far off. Actually, the reason why the number's probably going down is because we're scanning more and more bobmodium. It's turning the bobmodium into bobmodium veins. So as a result, whatever's left is disappearing quickly. Which is probably why it's doing that. Okay, there's the output. Not sure if there's any way if these inputs are going to line up. Something tells me no. Yeah, these are too narrow for this. So we'll just have to change their size as appropriate. Let's see, let's try to get it centered. Let's put it there. Okay. I think that's everything. Not quite as huge as that. So we've got our stone crushers, our concrete maker, and our slag slurry producer. In addition, we also need to do the crushed stone sorting to get phosphorus, but that's just a simple matter of having, I believe it was 3. Yes, that's going to consume 60 stone a second, or 2 red belts. And we're going to be producing 6 red belts worth, so we can certainly scale that up if we want to, but we haven't been using phosphorus in a long time, so I don't think it needs to be built huge right now. We'll just need to place it in a part of the factory that'll let it expand if we need to. Alright, let's make some blueprints. Let's grab the crushers. And the concrete. And slag slurry. And since that's a whole lot of stuff to pick up, let's go get the crawler. How's that bobmodium going? Certainly working on it. Let's plop some more drills down. One advantage of building everything ahead of time and then picking it up with robots is that we don't need to count how many items we need and then put them inside the crawler because it's already been placed, so we know we have enough of everything. Guess I can use this opportunity to place down the rest of the batteries. I'll just leave those set to where they are and limit each box. There we go, mostly. One short, but... That's a lot of accumulators. It's actually not as much as it looks like. Because we're halfway through the night, and we're not quite halfway through the accumulator charge, so... we could stand to have more. But what we have right now is working, so... we'll just stick with it until it's insufficient. We could certainly scale up our battery production, because I think most of the time we were just waiting on sulfuric acid, but now that we have enough, it doesn't look like output isn't going to be a problem anymore. Alright, the bot's got all the work done. It's good timing, it's daytime now. But unfortunately, building these setups is going to have to wait until the next episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.